Hello, everybody. Today we're back with a long one from Yanis Varoufakis. He was talking at the Qatar Economic Forum, and he's talking about his idea of technofeudalism again. And his idea of technofeudalism is that capitalism is dead, as he said in his book, Technofeudalism. As soon as you enter Amazon.com, you are exiting capitalism. Strange, I know, but that's what he says. He says because it is no longer capitalism, we are basically re-entering an era of feudalism, a sort of digression, but not the traditional sense of feudalism, but a new sense where the technocrats that create all these services that we use in the cloud, as he calls cloud capital, are now in control. So let's watch a little bit of what he has to say, and I'll take it from there.
The only entrepreneurs who seriously invested in new machinery were the big tech, Silicon Valley tech leaders. And that gave rise, and this is the connection with what I'm saying in this book, to a remarkable transformation that humanity has never seen before. I truly mean that. I know that every generation wants to feel that we are on the cusp of a fantastic transformation. You know, we all have this delusion. But I believe that between 2010 and 2025, we had such a transformation.
Okay, so you heard it. He's like, everybody wants to believe in the delusion that our time is different from every other time, but I believe in the delusion. So nice. I like it that he is at least starting off by acknowledging that his idea of technofeudalism is a delusion, but he believes it, he says. Well, it doesn't matter if you believe it or not. It is still a delusion. It's kind of strange that he both recognizes it and persists. So let's go to the next clip here.
What does this do? What does Amazon, or the Google, or the Meta algorithm do? It doesn't produce anything. What you buy on Amazon has been produced elsewhere. It hasn't produced by Amazon. What it produces is a remarkable power to input and infuse desires and thoughts into your mind.
What does it produce? It doesn't produce anything. What it produces is another contradiction, Yanis. So he says it produces nothing, and then immediately after, he talks about what it produces. So it's just speaking contradiction. I mean, he can talk about how what it produces is undesirable to him, which would be another thing. But to say that it doesn't produce anything and then describe what it produces is clearly a contradiction, makes it hard to follow, and is quite silly, actually. All right, let's move on.
But they also enable people to find things that are useful, whether they are products or services or merely information.
That's why we all use it. If you take away my phone from me, I'm dead.
So
it's useful, and that's why we use it. And if you take it away, I'm dead, he says. Well, of course, this is not true. It's just that it makes life much more accessible and efficient. It doesn't kill you to not use it. You don't have to be efficient. In the same way that nobody has to use engines for anything, never mind gasoline engines or electric engines now. You don't even need steam engines. You can just use horses. Well, why don't we? Oh, because it sucks and it's not as good. Why do we use our phones? Well, it's much better than not using the internet, for instance.
They are adding, that's what I mean, they are adding value.
No, they're not adding any value. They're extracting value. They're very clever at being useful to us, making us be absolutely dependent on them in order to extract. We both mentioned Michel.
Okay, yeah, and he'll go on here, but yeah, they don't produce anything. They don't produce value. They extract value. This is how he views like anybody that is charging us for a service. And of course, if the service is charged by a large company, he would call it taking rent. Of course, nobody's taking rent here. Rent is understood as a place to live, to operate a business. Nobody needs to use the space that is created by Amazon, which is completely digital. And they're not extracting any wealth. I mean, this is the service they are offering. This is the genius behind Amazon. But as Yanis, as you see, he just calls it extraction, and you see the look on his face. It's as if he has come up with something brilliant. That look, it is theft. It is not theft if it is voluntary.
But, the fact that we consent to something does not take away from the economics of it and from the reality that we are essentially undermining the capacity of our macroeconomies to reproduce themselves in a manner which is not degenerative.
Okay. So because we consent, because it's voluntary, it doesn't mean that it doesn't lead to horrible results. So this is a contradiction. This is to say that actions are both good and bad. I would assume that he would, well, that's maybe too much of an assumption, but forcing people to do things that you want them to do must be bad. So allowing them to voluntarily interact would be good. Well, he's saying, well, it all depends on the outcome. This is a consequentialist view. And of course, he says that it undermines our macroeconomies, which is just some jargon for the collective as he sees it, right? It has nothing to do with the individuals. And we'll talk about this more, but he really has no respect for individuals at all.
Okay, so the rent idea is if going back to your Amazon example, if the rent is 10% rather than 40%, does that fundamentally change your objection? I.e., do you object, could you accept Amazon getting something like that for the service it is providing, for what it is enabling? Is it the amount that bothers you?
It's not just the amount, because you see, once you have control of this cloud capital, whether you are a nice person or not a nice person, whether you're Jeff Bezos or, some saint.
Okay. So she asked if it's just the amount of money they're taking. He acts like no, but he says, no, it's not just that, meaning that, yes, it is that, but it's more. And he says, it doesn't matter if it's a nice person or an evil person. It doesn't matter if it's Jeff Bezos or a saint, meaning that Jeff Bezos is an evil person. And why is he evil? Because he is a B word, right? The billionaire, the ugliest word there is. Oh no, he produced a lot of things using his ingenuity and hard work that we all voluntarily choose to engage with his service and his products, and that makes him evil. That's the argument, essentially. All right, let's go on.
Okay, do you use these services?
All the time. All the time. But you see,
What, with gritted teeth, or what is...
No, I don't believe in individualistic acts of, vanity, rebellion.
Okay, you heard it. He uses it, of course, because he says that it doesn't matter what he does. He says he doesn't believe in individual acts of vanity rebellion. I think that he could have just stopped this and been just as accurate to his view, that he doesn't believe in individual acts. He doesn't believe that individuals affect anything. He only believes in collective action. He will talk more about this later. But of course, starting with the collective is problematic because the collective is not an irreducible primary. What is a collective made of? It's made of individuals. We cannot reduce the individual to its parts, because if we just look at an individual's parts, it doesn't lead to the nature, the essential characteristics of what a person is. We can't just look at the cells or the stomach or the bones or whatever you like that makes up the individual. The whole is the irreducible primary for understanding. And of course, we engage in society in a collective, but we do it voluntarily using our volition, using our ideas and our voluntary actions. So to start with the collective is a contradiction because it is reducible to the individual.
What is going to change if I stop using my phone? The world is not going to become a better place.
Okay, so if he starts acting in the way that he believes, what is going to change? He says nothing. Well, Yanis, what is if you lie, is that, or if you stop lying, is that going to stop everybody else from lying? No. So you shouldn't do it, because what is it? It can't change everything. There are people that murder people. if you don't murder people, is that going to stop murder? Well, no. I mean, it does nothing. It has to be. I mean, you see the contradiction immediately. Everything starts with the individual. It starts with an individual's mind, and it starts engaging one-on-one, and then to maybe a small crowd, and maybe to a larger crowd. But it always starts with the individual, and he is negating his own power, his own reason, his own volition, and saying that no matter what he does, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that he can convince everybody to act together in order to basically use democratic force and compulsion to stop these B words from existing.
Of that, because I know that you look to China and you see positives in the WeChat app, for example, which is a very all-consuming app.
Yes. So now he's going to go on to describe, it takes quite a long time, but he talks about how Elon Musk he wants to create a sort of a all-inclusive app within X, or formerly Twitter, kind of like a WeChat thing, and similar to what Mark Zuckerberg tried to do with the Libra money that was shut down. And he says Wall Street shut it down, and he's against Elon Musk doing this or any other cloud capitalist, as he says, tech industrialist, because then they have too much control. And she asks if he's on the side of Wall Street, and he's like, no, of course not. I believe in the third way. I believe in the democratic collective way. So we should all, group together somehow and create and collectively own somehow, basically a WeChat-like app. Let's talk a little bit about WeChat. So it is the kind of the all-inclusive Chinese app. You can, it's kind of like WhatsApp and Instagram and, in a way, PayPal or Apple Pay or something like that, all in one, plus some things. And yeah, it is quite convenient if the Chinese government likes everything you do. So they have complete control over this. And if you write a message to your friend that is criticizing the government or something else that they don't like, they will shut down your account and steal all your money. So this is the good thing with sort of technocrats offering different services, is that they don't have the monopoly power of government over you, and you can choose to take your money elsewhere, and they also can't steal your money. And if they do, there is legal recourse to getting your money back. If the government does it, there's nothing you can do at all. WeChat, which I have and I use, talk with my friends and family. It doesn't, it's really not an alternative that anybody wants. They only use it because this is how it is in China, that, the government controls everything. Not desirable at all.
And why should these banks, when they have a zero marginal cost for our transactions, charge us for it? And they charge us for essentially allowing us to use our own money. And this is preposterous. So this is a rent that has to go. And
okay, so he criticized the banking system, which I would also do. I think it's kind of ridiculous that they charge all these fees basically for nothing, and there's a lot of focus put on it. But why are they so successful? He would say it's because, well, I don't know. I guess it's because of the B words again. But really the reason why the banking industries are so rich and successful and powerful is because they get privileges from the government. He laments 2008 and the economic crisis. They bailed out the banks. They should have been allowed to fail, and then responsible financial institutions would have taken their place. But that was not allowed because of the government that used the thefts that they took from the taxpayers, and they gave it to the bankers and said, well, you need it, even though you are irresponsible and you ruin the world economy and you will continue doing so. Take some more money just to make everything stable for now. Anyway, so I agree that the banking system is quite bad, but his solution is to give the government more power over it, which would just lead to more problems.
I believe in digital payments. We should own them collectively. Because, Michelle, we create money collectively. It's a mistake to think that the central bank creates the money. In every advanced economy, only about 3 to 4% of money has been created by the central bank.
So he says, we create money collectively. The central banks do nothing. And then he had just talked about how he wants the central banks to create a sort of a WeChat app so that you don't give money to the technocrats, you give it to the government instead, and then it is owned collectively, because in his mind, anything that the government does is owned collectively, as long as it's controlled by a democratic process and a lot of other stipulations. But yeah, so, okay, he says that we create it collectively, and then he says...
The rest is created privately.
We create wealth collectively. Only 3 to 4% is created by the central banks. The rest is created privately.
Every time a bank extends a loan or an overdraft facility, it creates money.
Yes, that is how money is created. I mean, he just contradicts himself all over the place. He says it's created collectively, and then it is created privately. I don't know. I don't really know what he's trying to get at here.
An action point. You're still going to use these apps. We're all still going to use these services. But what would you like people here to take action on?
Well,
that's a good question, right? What can I do? How should I act? You can imagine what his answer might be.
If you are the mayor of a city, or if you play an active role as an active citizen in your municipality, in your region, what about suggesting that you create a socially owned competitor to Uber, Airbnb, to Google, and to Amazon?
Yeah, so, okay, so he just wants to create the social thing, and he's saying, like, what can you do? Well, if you're a mayor or if you're active in the community, then you can suggest a sort of collective action of overtaking these private companies. This is nothing. This is not a suggestion at all. And okay, so now the question is why? Why does he want to do these things? Why does it have to be collective? It's very, he just assumes that the collective is better than the private, that the collective is better than the individual. But why? It's a very interesting question, especially since like these ideas just lead to disaster. But that's why they keep updating it slightly. It's like, well, this form of collectivism is slightly different from before, and it's more focused on this where that one wasn't, and it'll be good instead of bad, and it'll be different. But essentially, every form of collectivism suffers the same fault, that they do not honor the individual's will, the individual's identity, and the fact that a person is a conceptual being, must be free to think and act upon their thoughts. They view it as bad, that consensual, voluntary behavior leads to bad results. I'm going to share one more thing to you, and it relates to the psychology of these people.
Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, right?
You see how proud he is about this statement. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So that's going to stop our video here, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the psychology here behind this. So you see how how excited he gets, and he thinks that this is kind of a trump card in the sense that talking about individuals having too much power and it corrupts, absolutely. Well, I don't think Bezos is corrupting anything. I don't think Zuckerberg is corrupting anything either. Of course, he does, because he views their wealth creation as not creation at all, but as extraction, just stealing. It reminds me of the old AOC clip where she says, nobody makes $1 billion. You take $1 billion. So, but of course, you wouldn't say that nobody makes $100, you take $100. Nobody would say that. So at some mystical point, creation becomes theft. And it, of course, is completely arbitrary. It makes no sense at all. But okay, back to this point of absolute power corrupts absolutely. Well, more importantly, I would say that weakness corrupts. They don't like this. If you ever talk to like a Marxist or a collectivist or a leftist or however you want to talk about it, and you tell them that weakness corrupts, they will instantly kind of look at you strangely and say, no, 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 it's power. Power is the problem. And it seems to be that the focus on when you say power corrupts, then the focus is on somebody else. It's the focus is on them. The focus is on them being bad. So if we just change them, then we can change the world and change the betterness of the world. But when you say weakness corrupts, well, you kind of have to look inward and be like, well, I don't have power and I'm weak, so am I corrupting? Well, no. People don't want to accept that. But really, that's what it is, right? Weakness corrupts in the individual, the one that isn't as capable, isn't as successful, is a bit lazier, isn't as intelligent, isn't as hardworking. This is all weakness. And they say, well, no, it can't be me. I'm meek and mild. And, this is goes back to even Christianity. And in a way, Marxism is offering a non-supernatural sort of Christianity, but it's a new form of altruism in the sense that the weak will inherit the earth. You don't have to wait to die like in Christianity and go to heaven. We can create heaven on earth now. And the weak will inherit the earth. And power corrupts. The power is evil. Just like in the Bible, it says that a rich man cannot go to heaven, essentially. Well, on earth here, in Marxist, leftist terms, collectivist terms, a rich person cannot be good. They have to be evil. It's the same thing. So it comes to the psychology of hating the good for being the good, hating the strong for being the strong, hating the successful for being the successful. And what's the solution? Us weak people will democratically overpower your success and strength and intelligence, and we will take what you have created because we know better than you. I think that this is what it all boils down to. So this has been me actually thinking today. Yanis is just another sort of mystic of muscle. And if you didn't like what I was saying, let me know, and I'll see you in the next one.